Previously, on the Fan of History, Sargon II seized the kingship of the Neo-Assyrian Empire. Welcome to the Sargon II show. He will be a very dominant force in the 710s episodes here. He seized power in 722 BC. The name is a westernization. Of course, it's Sarru-Ukin, meaning the true king. He is the first of four great Sargonite kings. We will call this the Sargonite dynasty because it is a new dynasty. And they are great in that they managed to maintain and expand the empire they inherited from Tiglath-pileser III. But make no mistakes, the builder of this empire was TP3. Sargon II is quite a busybody, and I had lesser thoughts of him before I did the deep research for this episode, because he is pretty fantastic. He's probably middle-aged at this time, which means that he saw the rise of Tiglath-pileser III. He saw that power could be usurped, and that is what he did. The sources are now significantly improved. They improved a lot during the reign of Tiglath-pileser III, and now they got even better. So here are some of the sources. We have an abundance of royal inscriptions. They are very careful not to mention Tiglath-pileser III, which is a hint. There are chronographic texts. There are letters using the postal system, now well developed. There are legal and administrative documents. There are astrological reports. There are sculptured reliefs unearthed at Dar-Sharrukin. And what then is Dar-Sharrukin? We'll get to that. So why does he call himself Sargon II? I mentioned that before, but I thought I would do it again. He is the second king of Assyria named Sargon, but people think very commonly when thinking about Sargon that he thinks that Sargon I was Sargon the Great of Akkad, but that is not true. There has been an old Assyrian king called Sargon I, ruling from 1920 BC to 1881 BC. That is more than 1,000 years ago. Sargon the Great of Akkad, then. Very good to name yourself after him, because he is the hero, and Sargon II will make sure that Sargon the Great is the great hero of Assyrian legend, even though he wasn't an Assyrian. So, did Sargon usurp the throne of Assyria? Well, he claims to be the son of Tiglath-pileser III, just like Tiglath-pileser claimed to be the son of Ashur-Nirari V or Adad-Nirari III. But Sargon mentions his great father then only once, and compare this to how normal Assyrian kings like Shalmaneser III takes great care to mention his father all the time. If your father was such a great guy as Tiglath-pileser III, you would mention him. The only mention we've found of Tiglath-pileser III is a glazed plate with a label saying that Sargon II was the son of Tiglath-pileser III, which he then absolutely definitely was not. I believe that they both were usurpers and that they tried to hide that fact. But Sargon II is the son in spirit of Tiglath-pileser, much more than Shalmaneser V was, who was the actual son. But if Sargon then wasn't the son of TP3, who was he? Good question. We just don't know. But we have the Ashur Charter that comes down to us. And in that, Sargon II relates that Shalmaneser V wrongfully imposed corvée on the city of Ashur. So the residents of the old Assyrian capital Ashur was forced to pay taxes, and they did not like that. Sargon II also claims that gods deposed Shalmaneser V, and that the gods appointed Sargon as the legitimate king, giving him this great name. So Shalmaneser V was deposed by revolution probably, and Sargon was not the heir designate. It takes a full year for Sargon to make everybody accept that. So no great reforms, no army marching forth in the first year. He will spend 722 to 721 trying to take control of the empire. And what happened is not reported, but that is why I did not cover Sargon II more than I did in the 720s. We know that the cities of Ashur and Haran sided with Sargon II, and that they got special status from this. Kidinutu, they got back their tax privileges, and that we know that 6,300 Assyrian criminals, probably Shalmaneser V loyalists, were transported to Hamath in Syria for repopulation. No foreign campaign in the first regnal year. Sargon II, if he's a usurper, he fears the old nobility in Kala, in the capital, and the old nobility in Ashur. So what is the right thing to do? The right thing is to move the capital. So Sargon constructs a new capital called Dar-Sharrukin, Fort Sargon, in what is today Khorsabad. There is no party to rival the greatest party of all time here, but Sargon immediately places his heir. There is a crown prince from the get-go. It's Sennacherib, and he is placed in charge of administration and the new capital and the nobles and everything that's boring when Sargon is away on campaign. And Sargon will be away on campaign all the time. We will talk more about Dar-Sharrukin in the next episode, but Sargon himself will stay there very little because he has stuff to do. We mentioned Sennacherib, and I think we need to speak more of him, because even if Tiglath-pileser III got his son Shalmaneser V into administration immediately, Sennacherib has a lot of real power here. We have letters sent to Sennacherib and not to Sargon, and Sennacherib is doing a great job. We also learned that Sennacherib's favorite thing is to build stuff. He is a builder. Dad, Sargon, is a warrior. Sennacherib is a builder and administrator. So this works out great here because they're both doing what they're best at. And if you ever try to make Sennacherib into a warrior, things will go south. He will not like it and he will be mad. So we will see more about that. There is also a guy that gets mentioned from the royal family. It's Sinahusur. He's the brother of Sargon II, and he is the Grand Vizier in Kala. So he is helping Sennacherib run things. There are rebellions all over the Assyrian state. Since Shalmaneser V's death in 722 BC, Assyria has lost control of Babylon. Remember, Shalmaneser V was the king of Babylon as well. But Sargon has not been able to claim this kingship. He has not grasped the hand of Marduk, and he is not the rightful Babylonian king. And it seems that Shalmaneser V did not treat the Babylonians right, because they are not happy and they will not obey Sargon. But there is also a rebellion in the east. East of the Assyrian Empire, Urartian influence is coming in from the north. The Western Manians are still under the influence of Assyria. The North Manians are under influence of Urartu. And the Medes are also in the area. And the relationship between the Manians and the Medes is unclear. There are 3 provinces, Parsua, Elippi and Karkar. They will remain loyal to Sargon II. But the rest of the provinces that Tiglath-Pileser conquered here, they will slide into the Eurasian sphere of influence. Do not confuse Karkar with Karkar. The place spelled with Q is in the west. It's the site of the old battle. And this place is a Manian area. The Manians have many lords and kings. Parsua is probably the ancient home of the Persians, and they might have left that. Do you remember the state of Elippi? Elippi is south of Mania, on the border to Elam. The people there are closely related to the Elamites. There is also rebellion against Sargon in the west. There is a major rebellion in Syria and Palestine. Yaubidi of Hamath is the instigator behind this. And Damascus, Semira, and Arpad, which was razed to the ground, but I guess the province that is now Arpad and not the city, because Tiglath-Pileser III destroyed that city. They all joined the rebellion. I'm a bit surprised to see Damascus here, but it's also a province, so I guess that makes sense. Samaria, freshly conquered. The 10 tribes were deported by Shalmaneser V. Samaria now rebels as well, despite the new population there. And Katarika is probably also part of this rebellion. So problems in the south, problems in the west, problems in the east. Where does Sargon go? Well, he doesn't go to China, so we'll talk a bit about China. It's ruled by King Huan then of the Eastern Zhou. He is a puppet ruler. We don't get much information from the sources. If there is a source for the 7th century BC for China, please tell me so I can read it, because I find so very little. I know that King Huan is around 720 to 697 BC, and that is indeed a puppet ruler. Around this time, the Chinese rulers and Qin, Wei, Zhao, Qi, Jian, and Zhongyan all begin to construct extensive fortifications to defend their border. This is the first serious wall building in China. So this is like the beginning of the Great Wall of China, but it's nothing like it, because this is stamped earth and gravel walls between board frames. So if you attack with spears and you will be turned away by these walls, but if you make a concentrated effort, you will get past them, like Sargon II would laugh at these walls. Duke Shuang of Sheng is a powerful ruler, and he defies the Zhou king in some way, which is not hard to do because the Zhou king has very little real power. In 720 BC we have the 15th Olympiad. 3 events now: the Stadion, the Dolichos, and the Diaulos. Orsippus of Megara wins the Stadion race, so no Messenian winner because Messenia is having problems. The Messenian war is still going on. Acanthus of Laconia wins the Dolichos. That's not the Spartan, but he is from Laconia. Dolichos is added as the 3rd event in the Olympics in this very year, and we don't know the winner. These events are all running races. So the Stadion is the short race, the Diaulos is the double Stadion race, it's double the length, and Dolichos is the long race. You go about 4,800 meters. There is conflicting evidence about the length, but it's approximately 18 to 24 laps around the course. It's sort of run like a modern marathon. You leave the stadium and you run through the Olympic grounds, and that's the first year of this then. Acanthus was a Spartan, sorry. He's the first known Spartan winner in the Olympics. Laconia is dominated by Sparta, and Sparta will now make great headway in the Olympics. Out of 81 known winners between 720 and 576, 46 are Spartans, and 21 of the 36 known winners of the Stadion race in the same periods are Spartans. The Spartans trained efficiently, and their weird way of raising their children, which you can hear about in our episode Life in Sparta, will promote fitness and produce great athletes. The Spartans also invented 2 new features of Greek sports now, and that's nudity and covering oneself in oil. But it's controversial. So there's another version about why the Olympians became nude. They have worn a loincloth up till now, but this year they turned nude. And one version is that Orsippus of Megara, who won the Stadion race, dropped his loincloth during the Stadion race but still finished the race, and then people got convinced that wow, it's really good to be nude when you're running, and they were like, is it cheating to be nude? Maybe, but in the end they all took off their clothes. In Babylonia then, in the absence of Assyrian dominance, Merodach-Baladan is the king. And we met this guy before. He paid tribute to Tiglath-pileser III, But now he's done paying tribute. He will be the king of Babylonia. And he will do a pretty good job. He's a Chaldean. He's from the sea land in the south. And Sargon will have some great enemies during his reign. Some arch enemies that make for really good stories. Merodach-Baladan is definitely one of them. He gets terrible press from the Assyrians. They really do not like him. But he is a diplomatic genius. He has great relations to all the neighbors. He speaks to everybody. He's like, whoa, those Assyrians, they are really bad. Let's get them. He has a great alliance with Khumban-Nikash, who is the king of Elam to the east of Babylonia. And together they decide not to wait for the inevitable attack that Sargon is going to lead into Babylonia. They decide to attack the Assyrians themselves. And in 720 BC, the Assyrian garrison of Dar is attacked. You can find Dar at the upper right of this map. It's far to the northeast in Babylonia. Sargon reports from this battle that he was there and that he won the battle. This is not believable. Merodach-Baladan claims that he was there and he won the battle for Babylonia. But I think we are going with the Babylonian Chronicle. It reports that the Elamite army, led by King Khumban-Nikash himself, defeated the Assyrians on the field before Merodach-Baladan even made it there. And sort of the outcome of the battle makes this believable, because the Assyrians remain in control of Dar. They flee to Dar after the battle and they manage to hold the town. But Assyrian power in the region is gone for 10 years. And I find it interesting that the Elamite army, that we don't know very much about, they managed to beat the Assyrians here. Very few people beat Assyrians in open field battles. So that makes me wonder what the Elamite army was like. And we will see more of the Elamite army in upcoming episodes. And they seem to be pretty badass, because they do great against the Assyrians. Sargon finally decides that even though there is an attack in Dar, he will have to go west. The problems are greatest in the west. So he goes west. Hamath, Damascus, Israel, Semira and Arpad, and possibly Katarika then, they muster an army to face the Assyrians. And they remember the legends of the Battle of Karkar. We did a full episode on the Battle of Karkar. They will meet Sargon II at the site of Karkar for the Battle of Karkar II, the sequel. In 853 BC, Shalmaneser III, king of Assyria, faced 12 allied nations making a stand at Karkar, and they stopped him. Sargon is facing 5 or 6 nations, but it's time. It's the Battle of Karkar, part 2, and it's entirely uninteresting because we know very little about this, except that Sargon II won a devastating victory against the rebels, and this time we can believe him. Shalmaneser III claimed the victory at the Battle of Karkar 1, but here at the Battle of Karkar 2, it's the Assyrians will not be stopped. And because of this victory, I think that Sargon felt comfortable trying to steal the glory from Shalmaneser V of being the conqueror of Israel. But this Israel that he fought wasn't the state of Israel that Shalmaneser V had crushed. So, state of Israel gone already. This was a rebellion in the province of Samaria. So, Sargon doesn't stop. He just turns south and continues the campaign. He reconquers Samaria. He goes as far as Gaza. And Osrhoon IV, still in power in the delta in Egypt, sends an army to help Gaza. But the Egyptian army is beaten. And there's a fight at Rafah on the border of Egypt, where the Assyrians defeat Egyptian soldiers, perhaps for the first time. But yeah, we've talked about that before. In just this single year then, Sargon II has restabilized the west. He has defeated every enemy. And well, good work Sargon so far. In the same year, Sargon takes the effort, he does the work, and he puts the west back in order. He reoccupies the rebel states, he punishes the offenders, he transports people to Assyria, and he moves in these 6,300 Assyrian criminals to Hamath, which means that there will be less rebels here, hopefully. There are mentions of resettlement in Hamath and Samaria, but there was probably more than that, and it probably took years to complete. And Sargon then claims to have done all the mass deportations that Shalmaneser V claimed earlier, but they still happened then. So I think that Shalmaneser V did them. The lost tribes of Israel, all of that, they're gone. So what about poor Judah? Well, King Ahaz of Judah has been betting on the right horse. Judah is a vassal kingdom of Assyria. Israel is conquered by the Assyrians. In fact, every state except perhaps the Philistine state. No, they are vassals. So vassal states or provinces on all sides of Judah. Assyria proper, an Assyrian province, the Assyrian province of Samaria, is only a few miles north of Jerusalem. And Sargon is obviously prioritizing this area. He is putting an Assyrian governor in Samaria, and this governor holds the eponymy twice in the upcoming years, and the governor of Megiddo holds it once. And anyone holding the eponymy in Assyria is an important person. So this is an important province, and Sargon prioritizes this. And Assyrian sources confirm that Judah was indeed a tributary at this time. In 719 BC, Sargon finally becomes the eponym himself. And that's weird, because the king is always the eponym in his first year. So I can't explain that. Maybe there wasn't total control before 719 BC. But the eponym chronicle is damaged here, so we know that during the eponymy of Sargon II, the king of Assyria entered something. But I think we can figure out where he went. In order to do that, we have to look at the situation then in the east. We have Urartu trying to spread its influence into Mania. We talked pretty much about this already, so I will just skip this. But Sargon does indeed go east. After going west, he goes east. His main objective was to relieve a faithful Manian vassal, Urartu. We mentioned him back in the days of Tiglath-pileser, and Urartu is still loyal to Assyria, but he's being hard pressed by two neighboring Manian lords. Mitati of Sikirtu, a fourth Manian lord, is supplying the enemies of Urartu with troops and cavalry. Sargon gets there, and the poor Manians just don't have anything on this guy. The Assyrian royal army, the best army in the world. Sargon, a capable general. So the enemies of Urartu are defeated, their cities are captured, their fortifications are torn down, and they are deported. Their stuff is taken. Mitati of Sikirtu gets away. He's still around. He wasn't attacked. His army wasn't there. He was just supplying the other guys. And he is going around among the other Manian lords, speaking good things about the great country of Urartu that will stand up to the Assyrians, not mentioning the enormous defeat of the Urartians at the hands of Tiglath-pileser III. But Urartu is back in control of his land, and now he has Sargon at his back, so he is pretty cocky, I would imagine. Sargon doesn't stay there. He doesn't go home. He still has time for these years, so he continues on the campaign, targeting the Skinians, the Balians, and the Abitikinians. They had all sworn allegiance to Urartu against Assyria, and they are all uprooted and transported to Syria. And this is just the foreplay for the Eastern Front, because there will be a lot of fighting on the Eastern Front. After this initial success in the East, Sargon II will be distracted by other things for 3 years, and he will return here in 716 BC. And when he gets back here, the situation is much more dire, and Urartu has recovered and decided to take this fight. Sargon also promotes a lot of interest in Sargon of Akkad, the old Akkadian king the legendary, the builder of the first empire. Sargon of Akkad is a truly great character, and I will at some point do some episodes on him because he's just fantastic. He is the first ruler of an empire in world history. But Sargon sells this old king very hard. There are chronicles, there are omen collections, there are legends and epics. There is a treatise written on the geography of the Akkadian Empire. And the idea here is that if people think that Sargon of Akkad is super great, then they will love Sargon II as well. 717 BC is the official founding year of Dar-Sharrukin, the new city, Fort Sargon. During the eponymy of Tabsar Ashur, the Chamberlain, Dar-Sharrukin was founded. We'll, as we said, talk more about this in the next decade. The Greeks will be doing very little in the 710s BC, but this is a time when Argos grows more powerful. Argos is a Dorian state. It will fight Sparta for the heritage of the Dorians, like we are the best Dorians. Argos extends her control into southeastern part of the Peloponnese. They annex the city-state of Cythera, and they make their people Periosii, pretty much like people are Periosii in Sparta. So check out the Spartan trilogy I did, the most popular videos on this YouTube channel, to learn more about Periosii. The citizens of the neighboring city-state of Assyrian, they flee west, and they are given new land by Sparta in Messenia, where the Messenians used to live, and they then become Spartan vassals. So Argos not pleased with Sparta, Sparta not pleased with Argos. Uh-oh. Time to check some colonies. These are the important colonies founded in the 710s BC. Chalcis found region. If you look for Sicily on the map, look at the northeastern corner. Achaean and Troyzenian settlers found Sybaris in Magna Graecia. That's far to the north on the map, the east side of Italy. And Miletus refound Sinuva, an old Hittite port, as a Greek colony roughly at this time. That's far to the east of this map. And then Croton is founded by Achaean settlers in Magna Graecia. And look at Croton and Sybaris. They are pretty close to each other, and that will be important at a later stage. But for now, we are done. So the next episode will be named King Midas, because Sargon will get a great new archenemy. He has the Urartu king, he has Merodach-Baladan, and in the next episode he will have King Midas. You can discuss this show with me on YouTube or on Facebook. You should check out the podcast. We are doing a podcast as well. Brendan is in there. We are 2 people talking about this stuff. We have a Facebook page, very popular, Fan of History on Facebook. Go there, like that. We are on Twitter, but there you only get like video updates. If you want to talk to me on Twitter, I'm Dan Horning. I should probably add that. There is a website at thefanofhistory.wordpress.com where we mostly post scripts from Timeline of World History, another series here on this YouTube channel. Please subscribe, like and share. That is what motivates me. You can also directly support this show. It's very important right now because we don't have enough patrons to continue after 700 BC, but we need like $15 per episode. So if you like what we do at Fan of History, please consider supporting us with $1 a show at patreon.com/fanofhistory. You can set a max limit per month, like I want 2 episodes. I will only pay for 2 episodes. But Patreon is a great way to support your podcasters. So please do. I am now, so much has changed since I started this 2 years ago, because I now live by doing YouTube stuff and mostly podcasts. So I have other podcasts that are quite successful. They are supported through Patreon. But I believe in this concept. I think this is a super interesting period of history. I think there is an audience and I want your help to reach it. So please support this. also please give us iTunes reviews for the podcast if you're listening to the podcast. Well, that's it for this. We'll be back with more Sargon in the next episode. Thank you for watching.